To win the National Spelling Bee, spell the word affect.
Wait, which one? Could you put it into a sentence?
Of course. The effect of the rain will not affect my mood.
Wait.
5 seconds.
Wait. E.
Oh, unlucky. The first one we have here is affect and effect. And the reason this is a tricky one is because they're basically homophones. When you say them out loud, they sound the same. But we can see when we write them down, we have to use a different spelling. We have effect with an A and effect with an E. And it's sometimes useful to exaggerate those sounds to help you tell the difference. So for affect, we use this when the word is used as a verb, as an action, as something that is happening. Whereas with effect, we use this one for when we are using the word as a noun, as a thing, even if it's an abstract one. And the best way for me to show you this is to use an example. Here we have the rain is affecting my mood. That is a verb. It's something that is happening right now. It's an action. Therefore, we use a. And at the bottom here, we have the rain had a negative effect with an E. We're using that as a noun. It's already happened and we can describe that effect. It could be that your clothes are damp. It could be that your mood has changed, but it is used here as a noun. So affect with an A is for a verb and effect with an E is for a noun.
Dylan, heard you were free this weekend. Do you want to go to that stamp collecting convention with... Oh, now is it Lauren and I or me and Lauren? No. It's actually Lauren and me. No, don't be so silly. It's actually I and Lauren. Well, in fact, if you're going to really do it, it's myself, Lauren and I. With us!
Next up, we have me and I. And this is always a tricky one, whether you say me and someone else or someone else and I. But there is a very clear rule. I'll go into some detail now. We use me when the person we're talking about with us is the object of the sentence. And we use I when the person we're talking about with us is the subject, the main part of the sentence that the verb is linked to. Now, if that's confusing to you, let me just show you an example and a more basic rule that works most of the time. So here we have, would you like to go to the show with me and Dylan? That's correct, we use me. Dylan and I are going to the show, want to come. And the really easy way to work this out, whether you should use me or I, is to get rid of the extra person. So here I'm going to get rid of and Dylan. Let's see if the sentence makes sense. Would you like to go to the show with me? That makes sense, it's correct. Now imagine for a second, instead of me, we put I. Would you like to go to the show with I? That's nonsense. So we're not going to use I in this sentence. Even if we add an extra person onto the end, me makes sense. And so you know that's using me and someone else as the object. At the bottom for I, do the same trick. Can you get rid of Dylan and? Keep the I and see if it makes sense. This is where many people get tricked because look, I are going to the show. That doesn't make sense either, but just be aware, when it's singular, when it's just I, the singular version of are is am, and we can swap those in to check. I am going to the show, absolutely correct. And if you weren't sure if this rule works or not, just put me. Me are going to the show or me am going to the show. Absolute nonsense. So if you really want to check, a simple way to know whether it's me or I is to get rid of the extra person and test the sentence.
Whoa! You're amazing!
Your and your. These homophones make up one of the most classic grammar mistakes that we see so often. Most people like to use this top one for any context, but we need to remember there's another option down below with a contraction, and here's how you can work it out, which one to put in every single time. So here's an example. Your new car is beautiful. This your is a possessive pronoun. What it's doing is telling us that something belongs to you. In this case, your new car. This new car belongs to you. Your new car is beautiful. Absolutely fine. Down at the bottom, we have an apostrophe inside. For this case, it's being used in contraction, which means this word used to be you are. You're beautiful. And here's the test we can do every single time. If we can swap the you're in our sentence for you are, then you know you have to use this version with the apostrophe. If you've written down you're like this, but you swap in you are, and your sentence makes sense, then you've chosen the wrong one. You've got it incorrect. So it's a really simple test. It works for other contractions as well, such as its. If you can swap in it is, then you need to use the contractive form. Same for your. If you can swap in you are, make sure you've chosen this one at the bottom. If not, then you've got the one at the top. Are we really going to try and think of a skip for every single one of these?
Yeah, I think it's what the audience likes, isn't it? So.
Well, I was just thinking, whom cares? This next one is something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's all to do with the subject and the object of a sentence again. So I think the best way is to just show you some examples. When do we pick who and when do we pick whom? Well, let's take a look and see. Hayden is a man who loves writing letters to his friend in Australia. So in this sentence, we have two people. We have Hayden and his friend. And in this sentence, Hayden is the subject. That's because it comes first, and he is the person in this sentence who is performing the action of the verb, which is to write. So Hayden loves writing, we're talking about him, and we use who when we are referencing the subject. We're talking about Hayden, he's a man who loves writing, therefore we put who, we're referencing the subject. Now at the bottom, whom, let's take a look at this sentence. Hayden, our subject still, because he starts off the sentence and he's still writing, loves writing letters to his friend, so we also have his friend now, who is still the object, to his friend whom he met in Australia. Now this whom is not referencing Hayden anymore, we're actually referencing his friend, who is the object of the sentence. And if we're referencing the object of the sentence, you guessed it, we have to put whom. So to know the difference between who and whom, we have to know the difference between subject and object. And once we've done that, it's easy. A quick bonus round before we go to number one, and a trick that will help you pick the right spelling every single time for these tricky words. You can see three pairs here. We have advise and advice, practice and practice, license and license. And me just saying them, you can see, especially for the last two pairs, how similar they sound. But they are spelt differently, sometimes with an S and sometimes with a C. So how on earth do you know which one to pick? Well, it's this simple. If it's a verb, use S, and if it's a noun, use C. Let's take a look at the verbs. Please advise me. You're asking someone to do something. To give you advice is to be advising. Over here, practice your spelling. You're telling again someone to perform an action. It is a verb in both of these cases. And at the bottom, the instructor licensed me to drive. So he's again doing something there. He's going through the process of licensing someone, saying they're allowed to do something. All of those are verbs, therefore all of them need an S. However, with nouns, and we can see here in these examples, amazing advice, that's an abstract noun. It's a thing, so it counts as a noun there. We use C. I got a job at the dental practice, which is a place, so obviously that's a noun as well. And at the bottom, license, I lost my driving license. Well, that's a physical thing. That's also a noun. And for all of those nouns, we use C. So there's a basic rule. If you're deciding whether to put an S or a C in words like this, if it's a verb, put an S. If it's a noun, put a C.
I'm just feeling so much fewer happy lately.
Wrong! Are you fed up of always muddling up your fewers and less? Embarrassed by getting it wrong in front of your friends? Then this video that you're halfway through is for you.
Oh, just look at the difference. I'm so much less happy now.
Terms and conditions apply. We cannot guarantee you will actually learn the difference between fewer and less. See local pet store for details. We've made it to the last one. Now, if you've enjoyed what you've watched, make sure you give this video a like. Leave us a comment to tell us which one of these you get incorrect the most. And make sure you subscribe because we've got loads more video content on the way. But let's dive into fewer or less. Now, this is a really common mistake. One of the most mistaken pieces of grammar you will ever see in the English language. But the rule is really easy. So let's dive straight into some examples. Dylan ate fewer chicken nuggets than Hayden. Dylan ate less food than Hayden. Now, both of these are correct. And the rule is this. If you can count what you're saying you have fewer of, in this case, chicken nuggets, then you use fewer. 2 chicken nuggets, 3 chicken nuggets, 4 chicken nuggets. However, if you can't, then you use less. For example, we can't say 2 foods, 3 foods, 4 foods. Because that doesn't work, we use less in this sentence at the bottom. If we had have said pieces of food, 1 piece of food, 2 pieces of food, then we would have used fewer. But that's the rule, simple as that. Put a number in front of what you're saying we have fewer of. If it works, then use fewer. If it doesn't, then use less. But there is an exception. It is if we are saying one. We don't say one fewer, we say one less. So even if you can count that one, ignore it. There's an exception. What would the English language be without an exception?